Good morning and welcome to this very special morning. Today we are watching Blue Origin's first human flight and the trip that will take Jeff Bezos into space. It's an historic event and it's very early in the morning. So thank you so much for joining us here today. We're very excited. We've got a great live show and we're expecting the launch to happen in about 30 minutes or 6 a.m. Pacific time. Now the live stream from Blue Origin has been running since 4:30 in the morning, but we're here with a live show and I've got two very special guests joining me today. Here we have our space reporter for CNET, Eric Mack. Give us a wave, Eric. And also joining us is CNET producer and resident space guru, Stephen Beecham. Thanks for joining us, Stephen, so early in the morning. And thank you to all of you for joining us from home. We'd love you to join the conversation. So if you're following along, tweet us at hashtag CNET Live. And you can also, if you're joining us on YouTube, jump into the comments, throw in your questions, your comments, your thoughts about today's historic event. Now, of course, Blue Origin has had 15 test flights to get us up to this day. They've even gone so far as putting humans inside the crew capsule, but then taking them out, replacing them with a mannequin, and then doing the launch. Today is the first time that we'll see this fully autonomous space capsule go up with a human crew inside, and it's a pretty historic event. We've got Jeff Bezos, his brother Mark Bezos, their first paying space astronaut customer, and of course, veteran aviator and my number one hero, Wally Funk. Now, before we get to the actual events of the launch today, Eric, I want to start with you. We think of Jeff Bezos as being Mr. Amazon, right? You know, he is the richest man in the world. And I kind of think of space as this sort of fun side joint. I think a lot of people do. But really, this is a long time in the making for Jeff Bezos and for Blue Origin, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that he's been pursuing actually since before Amazon became the absolute world swallower that it's become. Blue Origin was actually founded back in 2000, and that predates SpaceX, that predates Virgin Galactic. So yeah, this is a full 2 decades in the making, actually.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's we sort of, all of us have kind of been, the rest of the world has been turning its attention to space this past year in a new way, I think. But this is obviously a long time coming. These rockets aren't built overnight. Stephen, to go to you, this is a pretty high profile launch. Does it feel like everyone, you know, in the general public cares a bit more about this Jeff Bezos launch compared to other launches that you and I have covered?
Yeah, so right now we're in the midst of a billionaire space race. Like last year, around this time, we saw the beginning of the commercial space age where SpaceX was launching payloads to the ISS via the Crew Dragon. This year, we're seeing space tourism take off. Last week, we saw Richard Branson launching his Virgin Galactic spaceship. This week, we're seeing Jeff Bezos launch. And, Elon Musk, SpaceX has plans for space tourism also. So this is really like billionaires playing with their toys, and their high profile brings a lot of attention to what's going on. So this is really exciting.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's interesting. We've covered a lot of NASA launches. Obviously, we had the Perseverance rover launching earlier this year, but there's something different when you get a human crew, and there's definitely something different when you get, I don't want to say average Joes because Jeff Bezos is probably the furthest you can go from an average Joe, but people who haven't gone through years of test pilot training, I guess, other than Wally Funk, she's got, you know, thousands of hours of flight time under her belt. We'll get to the space tourists and the passengers inside the capsule in a moment. But I want to go, if we can throw up the image of what the actual flight path will be today, so we can kind of talk through what we're going to see. So there we have it. There, we're going to see the Blue Origin rocket launch off the launch pad in West Texas. It's going to ascend, and at about 75 kilometers into the air, or 250,000 feet, that's when we'll see the two craft separate. So the crew capsule will go up, the rocket will go down, return for a vertical landing. This is their vertical takeoff and landing rocket, of course. The capsule will go over the Kármán line at about 100 kilometers in the air. They'll get a couple of minutes of microgravity up there. They'll get to unbuckle and fly around, and then they'll buckle back in. then they'll begin their descent, and with the assistance of 3 parachutes, they will safely, fingers crossed, descend down to the ground. So that's the kind of flight we're going to see today. It's going to last about 10 or 11 minutes, not very long, a lot of build up to get to that actual launch for a pretty short flight time. So now I want to talk about Richard Branson, because we saw a couple of days ago, about a week ago now, Richard Branson launched on Virgin Galactic's historic, not first crewed, but it was the sort of first billionaire into space moment that Virgin Galactic had. Now, Eric, you were there. You were on the ground in New Mexico. What was that launch like? What was the vibe like on the actual launch day?
Well, the vibe on the ground was heavy on branding. This was a marketing exercise more than anything else. But as for the actual launch, it's interesting in that, it's very different than what we're going to see today. You can see there it's a carrier plane called a White Knight 2. It actually lifts the rocket plane, which is called Spaceship 2, lifts it up to altitude. So what you're seeing on the ground is basically this really funky carrier plane with a rocket plane underneath it. You see it take off on a runway, just like any other plane taking off. But then about a half minute later, everyone says, okay, look straight up, and you can see this double contrail from the carrier plane. And then all of a sudden, we hear, you're about to see it here on the feed, you hear, release, 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 and the rocket plane drops. And from where I stood, you could just see the blast of the rocket engine igniting. And then there's this third contrail that just goes straight up above you and at about 10 times the speed of the other contrails. It actually was a very cool thing to see. And then a little while later, the rocket plane just glides back down to the runway like any other plane landing. So, yeah, very different from what we're about to see, which is straight up, straight down.
Absolutely. And I loved that vlog that you did for us from the ground in the very, very insane heat down there in the desert. Beecham, you were watching with me remotely, and I have to say it was a very highly produced event, wasn't it? It felt a little bit like an ad for Virgin Galactic. I don't know if you got that vibe, Beech.
It definitely was like an ad. It was like highly produced when he was walking or riding his bike out to the tarmac and then getting on the ship. They had a musical performance. They were popping bottles of champagne. And then afterwards, they had like a big sound stage and they were handing out astronaut pins, which I think is like a cool souvenir you get if you fly on Virgin Galactic. So yeah, it definitely felt like a big advertisement. And then that it didn't stop after the launch. It kept going for the whole week. And I don't think it's ever going to stop. I think Virgin Galactic is promoting themselves as space tourist, space plane. So they want customers, and that's what this is all about.
Yeah, certainly. I think it's really interesting to just see. We're seeing some images here on the screen now of Richard Branson speaking post-launch. We saw them, hugging their families. All of those beautiful moments that we see when these billionaires dare to do the unthinkable and spend their money to go into space. It's interesting that you mentioned the pins there. So I was reading that the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, gives astronaut pins to anyone who flies over the 50-kilometer mark. So that's significantly below the Kármán line. This conversation has been quite interesting. This contest, I guess. There's probably other ways you could describe it, but how high Virgin is going versus how high Blue Origin is going. That Kármán line, Eric, can you kind of talk me through that? These are both sort of suborbital spacecraft, but they're going to different heights. Tell me why that's contentious, or why we should perhaps care about that.
Yeah, so I suppose starting from the top and moving down, we hear a lot about low Earth orbit, which is where the International Space Station is, and where Starlink's SpaceX's satellites are. That really the lowest you can go and be considered a low Earth orbit is about 150 kilometers. So we're far below that, and then the Kármán line is at 100 kilometers, which is just sort of this imaginary arbitrary line. I mean, 100 kilometers, how convenient that it's a very round number. And that is what the international space community generally recognizes as the beginning of space. Now, NASA, on the other hand, chose 50 miles. So again, another arbitrary round number. 50 miles is equal to about 80 kilometers. That's where Virgin Galactic went, a little above that. And Blue Origin has chosen to target the internationally recognized Kármán line at about 100 kilometers. It's really arbitrary. And for the purposes of space tourism at either altitude, you're going to get the chance to experience weightlessness, and you're going to see, that beautiful view of the Earth and get what astronauts like to call the overview effect. So, for purposes of marketing, it really honestly is all the same experience.
Yeah. Okay. So either way, you're going to be getting the weightlessness, the microgravity, the chance to do some somersaults out of your seat, but how high it is. And thank you pointed out it's 50 miles, not 50 kilometers. I cannot remove the Australian from myself. I'm constantly trying to switch to. I'm doing pretty well with the imperial system, but if I can use this platform, hey America, switch to the metric system. All right, so I want to talk about some of the bigger, rockets that Blue Origin is working on, and some of the other space companies are working on. But let's get back to the people who will actually be flying in the capsule today. So we have Jeff Bezos, richest man in the world. Lucky to be Jeff Bezos's brother. I wish one of my siblings just was going up into space and could just invite me along for the ride. Tell me about the space tourists that we have. So now, Eric, you can tell me about Oliver Damon. He is a fellow from the Netherlands, the youngest person to go into space at 18 years old, correct?
Yeah, that's right. He is a student from the Netherlands, just graduated from high school, planning to go to university to study, I believe, physics is what we've been told. And, he's also an aspiring pilot. And his dad happens to be the founder of a hedge fund. Maybe that has something to do with him being the first customer on this flight. But either way, he seems genuinely excited, and I'm sure is the envy of many folks in the Netherlands.
Yeah, I suppose you kind of come to college after high school, and if you say you've been to space, like all I'd done was maybe spend a couple of months in Europe, if that. So it's definitely, I'm not as exciting as that 18-year-old. I think being able to buy your way onto a rocket is kind of exciting, but what is more exciting for me is spending your entire life in the aviation industry, wanting to get to space and never being able to do it until you are 82 years old. Stephen Beecham, tell me about Wally Funk. You and I both got the chance to interview her last year. She's a pretty remarkable woman.
Wally Funk is a legendary aviation expert. She has over 19,600 hours of flight time. That is a long time to spend in the air flying around. It's pretty incredible. And she's best known for being part of the Women in Space program in 1961, which was known as the Mercury 13, where NASA was looking for women astronauts. And they asked Wally to be a part of this test. So we interviewed her last year for our Making Space podcast, which you should definitely check out. And she was one of the most interesting interviews because she told us about all the tests that they put her through to be an astronaut. They poked, they prodded her, they put her in deprivation tanks, they put freezing ice water in her ear. They ran her through the gamut, and she passed everything with flying colors, but she was never able to go to space. So when I heard that Bezos invited her to go to space and I saw that video of her, like her reaction, I was just extremely happy for her. And I think like this is just a really historic moment for her to be one of the first astronauts to go up on this ship with Bezos. So it's really a long time coming, and I'm really excited to see her get up to space finally.
Yeah, I have to say, she is probably one of my favorite people I've ever interviewed. I called her to ask her whether I could interview her. So I got in touch with her, and I was kind of thinking, let's set up an interview. And she spent half an hour chatting to me, telling me, her life history. And and here I am on the phone sort of thinking, I'm not here to record this. I'm making this podcast. I haven't set up any of my equipment to record this call. This was just the preliminary. Hey, are you happy to be involved? And she chatted to me for half an hour, just the most generous woman, the most lovely woman. You can see her there on camera, and she's just got so much energy. We recorded the podcast via a Zoom call, and she had to dial into the Zoom call with a rotary phone, which I didn't even know was possible. So she is such a delightful woman. And yeah, thanks, Beach, for doing a shout out to the podcast. We do have an episode on her, so you can find that wherever you get your podcasts. Making Space, The Female Frontier. It was a really great chat. If you want to hear more about her history in aviation as a pilot, the work she did she's done some remarkable work on air crash investigations. She did that testing program in the 60s, and now at the age of 82, she is going up into space. And it's pretty remarkable because, I don't think I could even go to space. I was getting my alarm set for this morning to do this live show, and I was like, oh, it's pretty exhausting. I don't know if I can do this anymore, covering these space events, not to mention like going up into space. So let's do a time check. According to the Blue Origin live stream there, we've got about 17 minutes till launch. So that puts us just after 6 a.m. Pacific time, 9 a.m. Eastern. Where we've seen a few things in the lead up to the launch time this morning. As I say, the live stream has been going since 4:30 in the morning. They were loading on the propellant at, I think, midnight last night. So there is no rest for the wicked. This is kind of a full day or a full night's event to get up to this point. Now, Beecham, we talked a little bit about the suborbital rocket, so the fact that Blue Origin is going just over that line into space. But Blue Origin has also got a number of other rockets they're working on. They've got the New Glenn heavy lift rocket, and they're also working on Blue Moon, the lunar lander. Could you tell me a bit about what Blue Origin is doing elsewhere? Because it's not just about these little jaunts into space for space tourists, is it?
No, it's not. So New Glenn is named after astronaut John Glenn. That is SpaceX's reusable orbital rocket, similar to SpaceX's Falcon 9. What sets it apart is it has a 7-meter fairing, which has 2 times the payload volume of any existing launch vehicle, according to Blue Origin's website. So it can carry a lot of satellites, a lot of payload, a lot more than other ships can carry. And it could also be launched in 95% of weather conditions. So that makes it like a more reliable ship for paying customers. And it's also a very large rocket. Like the only rocket that is bigger than New Glenn is the Saturn V rocket, which was used in the 60s for the Apollo program. So it works much like SpaceX's Falcon 9, where it'll launch itself and then land itself 1,000 kilometers downrange on a floating barge, much like SpaceX. So Bezos is really betting on this rocket being a big one for carrying payloads to the ISS and doing all kinds of things in space, carrying massive payloads, more than any other ship that NASA or SpaceX has right now. So New Glenn is a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal, and it's a big rocket. I think you're right. We kind of have a sense of the scale of these things. It's pretty hard to imagine until you can see one up close and personal. And I kind of want to touch on Blue Moon. So Blue Origin, as we say, has been around since 2000. I remember watching in 2019, I think it was, Jeff Bezos outlined his plans for space discovery, and he did this big presentation. He talked about creating a human race that lives and works in space to support humans here on Earth. The big part of that was his plans to build these floating space colonies. It really got quite sci-fi-ish and futuristic, but in all of that, in that kind of sci-fi novel that he wrote up on stage, he talked about the Blue Moon lunar lander, and that was pretty exciting. Can you tell me about their plans for Blue Moon?
Yeah, so Blue Moon is Blue Origin's moon lander, and it's also a very large ship. It's 3.6 metric tons, and it'll be able to soft land up to 6.5 metric tons on the surface of the moon. BBG, there's a bunch of audio coming through. It's okay, no biggie. But But what sets it apart is it has like a surface deck that the astronauts can secure payloads to, and it has a davit system which can lower rovers and all kinds of things to the moon's surface. And it's capable of carrying up to 4 rovers to the surface of the moon, which is pretty incredible. But in April 2020, NASA selected 3 U.S. companies to develop moon landers to land humans on the moon. And they were Blue Origin, SpaceX, and a company called Dynetics. But Blue Origin did not win the competition, and NASA kind of changed the goalpost at the last minute because the U.S. government did not completely fund the Artemis project. They promised $1 billion, but they ended up giving only, or allotting only $850 million. So Blue Origin is actually involved in a lawsuit right now against the Government Accountability Office, saying that NASA moved the goalposts at the last minute, and instead of making the parameters to go to the moon about the quality of the lander, they made it about money. So that's Blue Origin's big argument right now, and they're in court arguing over this. And I think SpaceX finally won the contract. So Bezos is not happy about that. He wants his moon lander on the moon.
Yeah, I can imagine. I want my moon lander on the moon. I haven't made one, but it'd be a pretty exciting development. Yeah, I think that's interesting. We've seen, as you say, Artemis, NASA's Artemis mission has selected SpaceX as its lunar lander. So that's obviously a big win for SpaceX and a bit of a setback. That was one of the reasons they delayed the launch of their New Glenn rocket. I think, Eric, you were writing about that. So let's just do a bit of a time check. We have seen the hatch closed, and we've got the final checks underway according to Blue Origin Twitter, and we're seeing that we've got the rocket there on the launch pad. We've got the T-minus has sort of stayed at 15 minutes for a couple of minutes now, but looks like things are gearing up. So we'll keep an eye on that as we head forward. So it's 7 minutes till 6 a.m. now, but obviously, safety first, got to make sure all those final checks are completed. Eric, I want to talk to you briefly about SpaceX. So we've obviously got Blue Origin. Beecham was just talking about the different contracts. This, it's not just about space tourism. It's about actually winning the race to get into space and being paid for it, that kind of commercial crew and cargo program. Where does SpaceX line up against Blue Origin? Are they sort of neck and neck, or is one out in front of the other?
I would say one is definitely out in front of the other. And
I think so.
If you monitor space headlines at all, or headlines, you can probably guess which one, just based on the amount of attention that Elon Musk gets in the media in general. Yeah, SpaceX is definitely ahead of the game. Even though this is going to be, the first tourist in space for Blue Origin, and we haven't seen SpaceX put any tourists in space just yet, they have already put humans in space. In fact, they've sent astronauts to the International Space Station, which is arguably a far more complicated engineering task to pull off. And on top of that, they've sent now dozens, perhaps even hundreds of satellites. Well, with Starlink, we do know it's hundreds of satellites into space. And they are, of course, working on hoping to have their own space tourists in space by the end of the year. So a significant advantage for SpaceX. We haven't even mentioned Falcon Heavy and Starship and all the other Starlink, all the other interesting things that Elon Musk is working on. But, as Beach has alluded to, Blue Origin, they're also working on similar things to compete. And Blue Origin has always taken a kind of more slow and steady and deliberate process, whereas Elon definitely takes the Silicon Valley move fast and break things approach, and they tend to break things spectacularly with a lot of flames and debris at SpaceX. So it makes for some exciting viewing, if nothing else.
Yes, you're absolutely right. I think the number of stoushes that SpaceX has had with the FAA in terms of, are they actually approved to fly today? That's been an interesting one to watch. So as we go, you can see there on the live stream, we've gone full screen. We've got the new Shepard rocket waiting there. So we're still holding at T minus 15 minutes. There is a slight hold, not been scrubbed or anything yet, but there's just a slight hold. So we've got a bit of a delay on the launch there. So we'll keep across that, but it's about 7 minutes now since the hatch was closed, and they were due to fly at 6 a.m. Pacific time, which is about 4 minutes time, but we are still in a bit of a holding pattern while they do those final checks after the hatch has been closed on the capsule. So yeah, I think it's interesting in terms of, you know, what government is allowing these companies to do. We mentioned the FAA there. I'm interested. You, Eric, wrote about the delay to the New Glenn rocket. It's sort of the story seemed a little bit like, well, we lost out on the Artemis contract, so we're not going to launch our rocket, and you can't make us. Was that a big loss for Blue Origin? Is that going to set them back significantly? Because obviously these contracts are where a lot of the money is and a lot of the prestige as well. So that was a bit of a blow to Blue Origin compared to the likes of SpaceX.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it is a big blow. I mean, that is really a big part of how SpaceX got to where they are today, is through, you know, really big NASA contracts that allowed them to fund their operations, not only, you know, to complete those NASA contracts, but that also helps fund, you know, Musk's larger aspirations for Starlink and Mars and everything. Especially in the beginning, it's a less important to their business operations now, I think. But yeah, I mean, so yeah, Blue Origin has said that you know, not getting some of these big contracts, that does set their plans back, and they're also always happy to point out, you know, that they're refurbishing some you know, publicly owned property down there at Cape Canaveral, and they're always happy to point that out. So yeah, I do think it sets them back. And Beach also alluded to, you know, some of the appeals that are going on with regards to that human landing system for the moon. So yeah, there's some disgruntledness going on there, but you also hear there's some rumblings from within the company that make it out every now and then. There was a job posting at Blue Origin that came out not too long ago, and the job posting, one of the requirements was to be able to, I forget the exact phrasing, but it was like a capability to rectify past failures. And then you also hear some rumblings within the space industry that perhaps some of Blue Origin's customers, United Launch Alliance, might not be 100% satisfied with the work they're doing, making engines for their rockets. So there might be problems here and there.
I love those sotto voce, like, space gossip things that you throw in, like United Launch Alliance. Yeah, this is what I love about you, Eric. You are across all this nitty gritty in terms of these regulations, these deals that are being done, the kind of inside industry knowledge of what's going on behind all of these glossy launches. To get back to the glossy launches, though, my favorite part, the countdown has restarted. It's looking like we're about 12 and a half minutes away before launch. So we were briefly held. There was a bit of a delay there on the launch pad, but our countdown has begun again. Here we have the very well produced Blue Origin live stream. This is kind of par for the course in the lead up to these events. We sort of get interviews with the engineers. We see what our astronauts are going to see when they actually fly up. So getting ready and doing those final checks now. Beecham, I want to ask you, it feels to me, and I think this is sort of, I kind of, when your finger is on the pulse and you're looking at what's happening in the general public and on the nightly news, it feels like there's a lot more interest in this kind of space race 2.0 right now, especially around space tourism and around regular people, quote unquote, people who have a lot of money or people who are already very notable in their own right. But these people going up into space as part of these launches. Is this part of a new era? Are we going to see every man, woman, and their dog launching into space on these crewed launches now, or is it still? I guess what I'm asking you is, it's still a while before I'm actually going to launch into space. I'd love to know. I think I'm probably not going to be able to do it in my lifetime. Maybe that's right. What do you think, Beach?
I think it's going to be a long while before regular people who are not billionaires or millionaires are going to be going into space. The cheapest ticket right now is on Virgin Galactic, which is about $250,000 for a ride. But that is refundable because Ashton Kutcher just got his money back because his wife talked him out of it, which I find very interesting. A seat on Blue Origin's new Shepard was auctioned off for $28 million in June to an undisclosed person. So that's a pretty penny. And then SpaceX is launching 4 passengers to the ISS on the Crew Dragon, and they're paying $55 million a head. So that's really expensive. And, SpaceX is actually going even further distance, taking them all the way to the ISS. They're also going to offer like moon orbital trips. They're working with this company called Axiom Space, who's actually going to try to build their own kind of hotel module on the ISS. So this is a very expensive endeavor that regular people like us will probably never be able to afford in our lifetime. Maybe in the future it could come down to maybe $100,000, but who knows what's going to happen, But right now it seems pretty far out of reach.
Yeah, I think you're right. Just a casual $100,000, that feels very accessible.
That's
not at all. Yeah, right. So we're seeing now we're under 10 minutes to launch time. Very close, very exciting. We just had the go for launch. They went through those final go, no-goes. Having spoken to a launch director for NASA last year, that's a pretty exciting part of the launch process as they go through the final checks and see whether every element of this rocket and the crew capsule is ready to go for launch. Now, of course, there's no pilot on the crew capsule today. This is a fully autonomous system, so it's just space passengers, which means those final checks are very important, and then the crew will be on their own once they leave the launch pad. So 9 minutes away now. Very exciting to see the rocket there on the launch pad. And of course, we've got that full screen. We've got that image of the actual flight path of the Blue Origin rocket, of how it'll fly, as I say, up to 250,000 feet, 75 kilometers. That's where the rocket and the capsule will separate. Rocket will come back down to Earth for a vertical landing. The capsule will soar above that Kármán line that Eric was telling us about a little earlier, that sort of invisible line that demarcates the edge of space. They'll have a couple of minutes in microgravity up there and get to unbuckle and do their somersaults. Then they strap back in and they will descend with the assistance of 3 parachutes. And those parachutes have been rigorously tested. Blue Origin was talking about that this morning. And then they'll touch down in the West Texas desert. The consistency of the desert, I'm told, is like a very fine talcum. So there you go. That's a little bit of on-the-ground knowledge. So just about 8 minutes away now. Eric, I want to come to you to talk about that space auction. So we talked a little bit about the ticket prices there. But Blue Origin, of course, auctioned off one of the seats on this flight. I think there's 6 seats in total, and there are 4 passengers today. That was a big deal. $28 million. That's not chump change.
No, it's quite a bit, and I'm looking here at the live stream, and with each one of these kind of pioneering events that we cover, there's always one kind of surprising moment that gets to me. And this morning, it has actually been. There's one of the camera views in the live stream is kind of focused right on Oliver Damon. You can just kind of see him through the window, and he looks so psyched. And that I just can't even imagine what he's feeling like being an 18-year-old kid going up in this rocket. And earlier we kind of glossed over how he ended up there. And yeah, like you mentioned, there was this auction in June, and the highest bidder bid $28 million for a seat on this first flight. Now, Oliver Damon is not that bitter, because at the last minute, there was a scheduling conflict, apparently, with this still anonymous winning bidder. We don't know who this person is yet. They wish to remain anonymous, but apparently, whoever they are the kind of person that can reschedule going to space with the richest man in the world and his brother and Wally Funk. And I have a feeling part of it maybe they wanting to stay anonymous. I don't know. There's a lot of theories out there on why this person is staying anonymous and skipping this flight. But what happened is Blue Origin then said, okay, well, this person, our auction winner, is not going to go on July 20th. So they went to some of the other, I guess we don't know if it's the next highest bidder, but apparently one of the competitive bidders was Oliver Damon's father. And they went to him and said, do you want to use your ticket to go on the inaugural flight? And they said yes. And that's how they ended up here with the Bezos brothers and Wally Funk, who I want to just take a moment to point out, Wally Funk, born and raised right here in Taos, New Mexico. And so also a bit of a hometown hero for me as well. So it's getting exciting, folks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great shout out. Wally Funk, when we chatted, she was all about New Mexico and how she'd grown up there and how she'd been inspired by living in Taos. It was a wonderful thing to chat about, and she definitely really cares about New Mexico. So great to have her as a local homegrown hero for you, Eric. And yeah, I gotta say, being a person that has a scheduling conflict, my scheduling conflicts are not as high profile as having to miss out on a billionaire space flight because I saw a great tweet that was like, sorry, mate, got a Zoom call, can't make that flight, but I guess I'll go next month. Like, imagine having the kind of moon money that you can pass up these opportunities. So, all right, we are under 5 minutes away now from the launch. We are hearing them, Blue Origin chatting about, they're chatting to one of their head engineers who designed the new Shepard rocket, of course, named after Alan Shepard, getting ready for that launch now. And, they've got the prestige and the history in terms of some of those astronauts that have gone up before. This is, of course, the anniversary of the moon landing today. So they've chosen a very auspicious date for their launch. They're going through some last minute checks. I'm just getting a bit of an update. Okay, and at T-minus 2 minutes, that's when they'll throw over to the autonomous vehicle and everything is kind of under control from there. So less than 5 minutes away. We are a little bit later than the originally scheduled launch time of 6 a.m. I guess we're going to throw to the space flight soon. I'd love to go full screen and really carry that so you can hear what's going on in those final minutes. We'll keep you updated if there's any delays or anything like that. Final thoughts as they go through those final checks and pressure checks. Eric, how are you feeling about this launch? Excited, hopeful, new era for you? What do you have to say?
Yeah, I think it's very exciting. I feel pretty confident that this is going to go off as planned. We've never really seen any there's never been any big explosions or crashes or anything with Blue Origin. Like I said earlier, they move very slow and steady compared to some of their competitors. And for those that are wondering about the holds, this is kind of par for the course with a Blue Origin launch. Even a lot of their previous uncrewed test launches, we see these holds, in the final minutes before launch. It's different than a SpaceX launch where they're trying to get to orbit and they have a very small window. Sometimes it's, instantaneous. They got to launch on the second at this particular moment, or it's scrubbed for the day. These launches don't work like that because they're just going up and back down. So everything is par for the course. And I think we're going to see a lot of, 4 in particular, very happy faces in about 15 minutes.
You're right. 4 very happy faces, and probably a few on the ground. Blue Origin recognizing that everything's gone to plan. Final quick thoughts from you, Beach, before we go and hand over to the Blue Origin launch team.
I'm nervous and excited for them. They're handing themselves over to an algorithm. There's no pilots on board. I don't know if I would ever do that with no pilots on board, but Godspeed to them, and hopefully they come back safely and everything goes okay.
All right. Well, we just saw, if we can go to the full screen BVG, we have just seen, 2 minutes away, they are retracting and handing over to the spacecraft. So let's go full screen to Blue Origin ahead of launch. We'll be back after the launch to talk through everything we've seen, but for now, let's watch the Blue Origin launch.
Ariane, when that engine gimbal check occurs and that engine swings, they should actually be able to feel it in the cabin because it'll sway the stack back and forth.
There go the aft fin checks. There you see the engine gimbal check just peeking out at the base of the rocket. All right, here we go, everybody. Thousands of people contributed years to this historic moment. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Blue Origin's first human flight. Godspeed, first crew of New Shepard. Let's light this candle.
T-minus 16, guidance internal. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Command engine start. 2, 1. Ignition. We have liftoff. The Shepard's cleared the tower.
And New Shepard has cleared the tower on our way to space with our first human crew. Go, Jeff. Go, Mark. Go, Wally. Go, Oliver. You are going to space.
5,000 feet.
Oh my goodness, listen to the roar of the BE-3 engine. We are just about to pass through max Q, maximum dynamic pressure. That was when the stresses on the vehicle are at their maximum.
Max Q.
Max Q is confirmed. Beautiful burn on that BE-3 engine. Liquid hydrogen
Mach 1.
and liquid oxygen as the propellant. It's a nice, not just clean in terms of beautifully performing, but what comes out of it, it's steam, right? Whew. To see the glow of the engine underneath the rocket, just under our shoulders, and to know that we've got a crew that is going to space, it just feels different, doesn't it, Gary?
It is totally different.
All right, you can follow along, of course, the speedometer in the bottom left, the altimeter in the middle of the screen there. So far appears to be a nominal flight. All right, coming up here on MECO, main engine cutoff. That will be followed shortly by separation. And at that point, after separation, we're gonna let the astronauts unbuckle and take in the freedoms of zero G. There is MECO, main engine cutoff. A beautiful shot down the New Shepard rocket. Look at that view. Unreal. Awaiting separation here. And here we are. You can start to see, stand by. You're going to see the separation of the capsule from the booster itself.
Oh, so you have to look out the window. Oh, we need kids done. Oh, wow. Get upside down.
And there we go. Our astronauts have passed the Kármán line at about 328,000 feet, continuing their ascent. You see the two vehicles there. When the speed hits 0, you know that they've hit apogee, their maximum altitude, and you hear they're having quite an experience.
All my instincts are fine.
Okay, how about start back?
Okay. I'm here to Yep. Got it. Yeah, you just have to wait for it. Who wants the Skittle? Oh, yeah. Yeah! Well done! Here, toss it.
1 minute warning. 1 minute warning.
Go! Oh, sorry. Let's try again. Awesome. So good. Yep.
Get that one?
Got it. Let's see if I can see the boost. Yeah. A little bit. I cannot. Oh, wow. You got to take a moment to do that. Okay, get in. We got to get in. Woo! Roll.
Oh, fantastic. Look at this. It's dark up here.
Oh, wow.
2,000 miles an hour.
Everybody in?
First step, status check. Astronaut Oliver.
Oh, my word.
Oh, wow.
Let's go more.
Oliver, status check. Oh, sorry.
Blue Control, Oliver, status perfect. In seat.
Copy, astronaut Wally.
Wally.
Blue Control, Wally is in seat.
Copy, astronaut demo.
Astronaut demo, in my seat.
Copy, astronaut Bezos. Copy.
Thank you again, everybody, for joining us live for our first human flight on New Shepard. So far, a nominal flight. Our booster is about to return to its landing pad. There we see engine relights. The sonic boom. And booster touchdown, welcome back, New Shepard. A beautiful rocket that provided a beautiful flight to space. What?
First step, your booster has landed.
Booster landed. Blue Control, Bezos, that's great to hear about the booster.
And there it is, our crew capsule with our 4 crew members on board.
You have a very happy crew up here, I want you to know. Oh, yeah. I see blue. I see the big barn.
Stand by drogues. Stand by drogues. Stand by main. Stand by main.
Oh, so far, a nominal flight. Here comes the crew capsule back from space. The drogues deployed. Here are the mains out, reefing and coming to full inflation. Our rocket went over Mach 3, and now they're coming floating back down at just about 15 or 16 miles an hour, about to join us home. Back here in West Texas, after having gone over the Kármán line, the internationally recognized line of space, the world's newest astronauts. Gary, how you holding up, friend?
I am speechless.
Wow. And those big, beautiful windows.
I've just got about a minute and a half of floating before the activation of the skirt jet for a soft touchdown. At this point, there are sensors on board that are detecting how high they are above the ground, multiple sensors. And just 6 feet above the ground, that cushion of air will puff, and they will have a soft touchdown, almost like just sitting in a chair. But I'm sure their adrenaline is pumping now.
And touchdown. Welcome back, New Shepard's first human crew. What a flight.
Welcome back to Earth, first step. Congratulations to all of you.
Oh, what a day, what a day.
Very happy group of people on this capsule. And we're so grateful to everybody who made this possible. Thank you.
Blue Patrol, Oliver, thank you so much for everyone there. It was amazing. It was amazing.
Copy, first step. You have a very happy Capcom here as well. Let's do a status check. Astronaut Oliver.
Blue Patrol, astronaut Oliver, status correct.
Copy. Astronaut. Copy. Astronaut Demo.
Astronaut Demo, I am unbelievably good.
Copy.
Blue Control, Bezos, best day ever.
Copy, everyone. Go ahead and remain in your seats. Crew member 7 is on their way. Shortly, you will hear the capsule off-gassing.
Did anybody have to swear altitude or altitude? I didn't. We asked? No, they thought they did. We'll find out. It's okay. I had, my main mission was accomplished. I didn't kick anyone. That's fine.
That was only about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
First up, Blue Control, your apogee was 351,210 feet.
Blue Patrol, could you say that in meters?
50. That was incredible. Wally, that was incredible.
It was. I was thinking we were jerking and it wasn't.
No, I was the helicopters. I was surprised at how easy 0G was. Yeah, it felt very like remarkably natural. It did. It's like swimming. Yeah, it's not. It's weird. It actually feels good. It felt. There it goes.
Well, what a day. You can see our the world's newest minted astronauts there on board discussing their incredible flight of a lifetime up to space and back. Wow. Our team is now preparing landing safety operations. The recovery crew has already, minutes ago, has left the barn there to go open the hatch. You can see them there. They're arriving at the capsule in the Rivians. You can actually also see that the parachutes fell very close to the capsule. It means that there's not much wind out there. It was a beautiful, beautiful day. Not too shabby, Gary. What do you think?
No, it was picture perfect. And it sounds like it landed pretty much exactly where we predicted. That's how they can get to it so quickly. They start moving even before it landed based on the prediction of landing. We use weather balloons that we launched throughout the morning, and that gives us a very good idea of where it will land, which is within 1,000 feet. What you're seeing that they're doing right now is Kevin Sprague, crew member 7, is just making sure everybody is okay and gives them a thumbs up. They're also grounding the vehicle. When you go into space, you could accumulate pretty significant electric charge. That's actually why we prefer that the astronauts not get out themselves, so that we can ground the vehicle of static charge, which can be quite strong.
Excellent, and I think there that Kevin Sprague, our crew member 7, has given the thumbs up for all of our astronauts that are on board there. Again, Jeff Bezos, Mark Bezos, Wally Funk, and Oliver Damon. What an incredible day. You heard them on the audio. Best day ever. I mean, I feel like this is our best day ever, and we didn't even get to go up to space. I mean, what a day. Again, congratulations to the entire Blue team, our astronaut crew, and of course the friends and family of these incredible astronauts. They're just about to exit the capsule here. Let's wait for that moment. There you see Jeff in the window.
Oh, there you are.
Felix is up here.
All right, guys, we'll do later.
I got a main line in front of the hatch.
Hey, the main parachute line in front of the hatch.
Jeff! Okay, take the side, take the side. Help on the bush.
They're just moving one of the main parachute lines to make sure it doesn't snag the hatch when it opens.
And there's Jeff. Thumbs up.
CC safe, Jimmy.
You heard there, the CC is safe.
No, I got it. No, I still got it open on the side.
Confirm. Okay, you can go live. Go to the camera.
Jimmy! Jimmy!
Gary, the architect of New Shepard, congratulations to you, man.
Congratulations.
Give me a
to you,
hug. This is just, ugh. What a day. Again, thank you everybody for joining us live for our first human flight of New Shepard. Our 4 astronauts went to space and back, topping over 350,000 feet, well over 100 kilometers. They've come back down safely. We're just waiting here for egress. Our crew is going to get out of the capsule and meet their families back here on the ground. Of course, their families that have provided so much support since they were little kids and dreamt of this to this day and this moment.
Let me know when everybody's there.
Mar and Mary. Get in here, Mar.
All right, Caitlin, you ready? Family, are we ready?
Your dad has been around. Oh my God. Dad, that's great. Oh, congratulations. Woo! You gotta get up there, sweetheart. Oh my God, it was so great.
What a day again here, a successful launch and landing of the new Shepard rocket and crew capsule with our first human flight crew there, Jeff Bezos, Mark Bezos, Oliver Damon, and Wally Funk. And their families there giving big hugs all around. What a moment, so much emotion from all of them. The elation. Did you see Wally? Did you see Wally when she came out? You know, this, I told you she was probably going to do a summer, cartwheel as she came out of that capsule. What an incredible, incredible day. Let's just capture a couple more moments of this. Again, space flight, so much engineering, so much objective, hard engineering, technical thought that goes into it. But when you put people on board, there's such an incredible emotional component to this. The time, the effort, the blood, sweat, and tears, you know this better than anybody else. Again, congratulations, Gary.
Thank you, Ariane. And congratulations to the entire Blue Origin team. This might have looked easy today. It was anything but easy. To design a vehicle like this that is so safe that anybody can get on board.
From Wally Funk, who today became the world's oldest astronaut at 82, to Oliver Damon, who became the world's youngest astronaut at 18. He joined us from the Netherlands. Again, big shout out to our viewers in the Netherlands. Congratulations. You should be very, very, very proud of your countrymen. I mean, again, and representing the next generation of people that are going to go into space. I mean, I can't wait to see what Oliver does with his future. I can only imagine. You heard him in the video. You know, he just wants to spread the love, spread the message. I can't wait to hear their impressions of the view from up there. And in fact, I hear in just a moment we hope to be getting a couple of impressions from our astronauts. We'll stand by for that there. You see the friends, the family. You see our CEO, Bob Smith, there. You see a couple of our other executives, of course, this crew safety team.
Champagne.
And it's champagne time, everybody.
It's the only proper way to end the space flight.
Exactly, only proper way to end a space flight with a champagne shower. And man, that is, let me just tell you, that is the beginning of the celebrations. There is a lot more to come. We are, again, not just the crew and the families, but everybody at Blue Origin who has made the historic day possible. Well, there's a big hug from Jeff to Wally Funk.
The oldest person in space, you. So that's so wet.
A beautiful moment there.
Thank you.
For a woman who was denied her opportunity to go to space in the 60s, she had to wait to the 2020s, but man, it was worth the wait. There you see the Bezos brothers hugging it out. Oliver Damon, you saw him earlier giving his father a big hug. What a moment. You saw the first hug when Jeff came out of the capsule to his mother, Jackie, followed by his father, Mike. I mean, again, what a day. What a day. To the thousands and thousands of members of Team Blue, you contributed to today as well. I know you were all hugging it out back in Kent, Washington at our headquarters near Seattle, sending you guys a lot of love from down here in West Texas. What a moment.
I imagine.
Oh, look at this girl.
Ella.
I mean, granted, you know, Gary, we weren't in the capsule, but my favorite part was hearing, you know, the hooting and hollering and the laughing. You know, Jeff is known for his big boisterous laugh. I mean, he's having the moment of a lifetime here, and you can only imagine as they were floating around up there. You saw them say, hey, gosh, look at the views.
All right, we are seeing the pictures there live
Gary,
from the West Texas desert. We have had a successful launch. Blue Origin's new Shepard rocket has successfully launched and landed. It all went off pretty much without a hitch. Oh, there's someone just drinking straight from a bottle of champagne. You love to see it. Successful launch and landing for Jeff Bezos, Mark Bezos, the first paying customer of Blue Origin, Oliver Damon, and of course our aviation hero, Wally Funk. I think the highlight for me, we'll keep those pictures up and we will jump to them if we see any kind of anyone getting ready for speeches. I think mostly they're just drinking champagne and cheering right now. And of course, as if you wouldn't, I think the highlight for me was hearing Wally Funk in microgravity just cheering, woo, woo. That was so awesome to hear her. What are your thoughts, Eric? The launch was successful.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty incredible. It always, I'm never quite prepared for how how it kind of hits me emotionally. So like with the moment they took off in particular, you know, my like earliest memory as a child, you know, how you have like your first memory of the first news event that you remember happening in real time. For me, that was the Challenger disaster. So, you know, always a little bit like the moment that rocket fired, I was like, the nerves came back. I think my entire career I might be trying to work through that moment in first grade in 1980. I don't even remember what year, but yeah, it went off perfectly. There were some really wonderful moments there. You had all the cheering you could hear. Interesting that they just had the audio and not the video. I wonder if that was from seeing the video stream not really work out in real time for Virgin Galactic and knowing they could rely on audio. It actually was pretty compelling to be able to hear that. I'm pretty sure we heard something about, we heard Jeff Bezos ask people if they wanted some Skittles. So I have a feeling we're going to see some HD video a little bit later of Skittles floating around in the cabin there. And then, yeah, seeing everyone come back safe and it coming off flawlessly was pretty incredible.
Do you think that a paying passenger that paid $28 million and didn't end up going up was the CEO of Skittles just for that branding opportunity? Being able to hear about zero G Skittles was pretty insane. Beach, what was your highlight there? It's all obviously worked successfully, and I think we're all pretty tense waiting for it to launch and come down successfully there.
I definitely teared up hearing Wally Funk just going, woohoo! Like the excitement in that capsule. I can't imagine what they were going through. And then them talking about how zero G felt like they were swimming. You know, like I've had some dreams where I'm swimming or like trying to run fast in my dream where it feels like you're just kind of trapped in a swimming pool or something. But it's very fun to hear the audio as they were going up. And I also like to see a lot of the cowboy hats because I was born in Houston, Texas, right near NASA. I grew up in Texas, so I like seeing a lot of the cowboy hats and seeing Texas represented.
Absolutely. I mean, it was just glorious to see. And I have to say the cheering, I definitely teared up there as well. I always get emotional for these launches. I think you sort of, the moments the rockets blast off and you kind of realize it's happening and you realize all of the work. This isn't just a rocket launching and landing. This isn't just a machine. This is the people that have built the machine. This is the kind of the incredibly complex physics, science, mathematics that's going into actually making sure this rocket launches, that the capsule detaches safely, that the rocket comes back down for, it stuck a perfect landing. We saw that about 6 or 7 minutes in, which was just remarkable. So that was pretty amazing to see. And then, of course, doing all their status checks. They had the Capcom there kind of checking in with all of the astronauts, making sure they were all okay. And, you know, Oliver, you need to do your status check. The 18-year-old just like floating around and they're telling him to buckle back in. So, yeah, nice to know that 18-year-olds, even if they're in space, they don't change. So we're seeing a bit of a recap there on screen of the launch moment, the moment that the support arm retracted away, and you know, they said, let's light this candle, and they shot it off into space, and it was a pretty textbook launch there. I mean, you know, glorious shots. You sort of we were discussing while the launch was happening, you know, imagine the people that are actually shooting this event and still staying. They've got the camera, they managed to stay on the camera and the capsule when it's at its apogee of 351,000 feet, I think I heard. Definitely reached over 350,000 feet. And there we go. We have the landing of the rocket, and then there 3 parachutes deploying perfectly, bringing the capsule down, floating it down, and those were some pretty great shots as well. Everything seemed to just come off without a hitch, which is really marvelous to see. I mean, there we go, and the touchdown in the desert, and of course our astronauts coming out. I saw, and there's the champagne. I saw a moment when just always got to wonder what champagne they're drinking today. Definitely not a mid-range domestic sparkling, I don't think.
It's not cooked.
No. It was funny to see one of the handlers outside miming to Jeff, like, put on your cowboy hat for the photo opportunity. Very, very well managed. Just funny to see, you know, the boom mic operators running out to the capsule, the camera crew running out to the capsule. So it all went fairly seamlessly, and I think we're all pretty thankful that, you know, these rocket launches aren't a guarantee. They had 15 successful test flights up until this day, but not necessarily a guarantee that everything goes smoothly. And so really, really wonderful. I think a bit of relief on the Blue Origin campus today as everyone sort of realizes that it's all gone successfully. And that there were no mistakes, no issues, and then this is just the first of, I guess, many flights from now on. So, I mean, Eric, what's next for Blue Origin? Is this just the first of, you know, a weekly schedule of flights? Is this going to become like my local bus route where I just check the schedule of when Blue Origin is flying, and we don't do a live show every time because it just becomes par for the course? Is this our future now?
I know that is what they want the future to be. Actually, on Sunday, there was a press conference, and Blue Origin did say that their plan is to do 2 more launches like the one we just saw before the end of 2021. So presumably, we see the actual auction winner on one of those flights, or maybe it's never disclosed who the auction winner is, and we just have to guess that it was one of these people that goes up in one of the next flights. So that's the plan, 2 more by the end of 2021. You know, and we were talking earlier about you know, whether or not this is ever going to be affordable for people like us, and I think probably not for a long time, if ever. But something that's kind of overlooked with the potential of this technology, and that applies to both Blue Origin and Virgin Galactic, as well as what SpaceX is doing, is the potential for not just trips to up and down to space like we're seeing, but to use these kind of craft for actual international flights. It's something that Elon Musk has talked about. I know Richard Branson is also looking into it, where instead of taking an international flight, you go straight up to space, and you can cruise much faster at space. So you could go, you know, from New York to Dubai, you know, in less than an hour, probably even less than a half hour. And there's your quick trip to space. So that's something that that may actually be how the price comes down and how the rest of us get to space.
Yeah, I think I like the idea of, you know, making it tangible, the benefits in terms of everyday people. I got to stop using that phrase because this is really still not an everyday person kind of thing. Beecham, what are your final thoughts having watched that and seen it all go successfully? And gosh, it's still before 7 a.m. We've had a busy morning.
Yeah, I'm really just happy for Wally Funk that she finally was able to do that. You could see her excitement as she exited the capsule. So she is the oldest person to be in space in history. So I think that record might hold for a while. But yeah, I'm just really happy for Wally Funk and happy for everyone who works at Blue Origin. I think it was really incredible what they were able to accomplish.
I think you're right. I think this is a real success for the entire Blue Origin team. You know, Jeff Bezos is the billionaire in charge, and he's the face that we've kind of seen. A lot of people saying, you know, oh, too much money being spent, billionaires and their toys. But I think this is a real winning day for the Blue Origin team to see that their rocket safely launched and landed. And I agree with you, Beach. I think the highlight for me was definitely hearing Wally Funk. That was a moment when I just started to tear up because she's a real pioneer and a really special person. It was so great to hear her have such a marvelous flight. Look, thank you both for joining me, Eric Mack, Stephen Beecham. It's always a delight to have Space Day with you guys. It was such a fun launch. It all went really well, and thank you for watching and tuning in to join us. We love doing this. Despite the early start, it was a very exciting morning. So we really appreciate you joining us. Of course, we're going to have loads of coverage. Check out CNET.com, CNET's YouTube channels. We'll have recaps of all the great footage from today so you can relive those moments. And be sure to stay tuned to CNET for all of our space coverage. We are covering this Space Billionaire Summer. Of course, all the other exciting projects, Artemis coming up soon. We're very excited to bring this to you, so make sure you stay tuned to us, and thank you for joining us. And I guess this is us signing out. Cheers, guys.